Hi, friends. Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast about the Audubon Park Garden District in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Michael Lothrop, and today we'll be speaking with Sandy Bitman, the owner of Park Ave CDs located at 2916 Corinne Drive. If you can't make it into the store, you can visit them online at parkavcds.com. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, please feel free to message me on Instagram at HelloAPGDPod. Thank you for listening. I'm here today with Sandy Bitman of Park Ave CDs. Sandy, how are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
So, tell me about your history with Park Ave CDs and where you started and where you are now and how you got there.
Sure thing. Okay. So I own Park Ave CDs, or rather it probably owns me at this point. So I've started working at Park Ave, I believe, in around 1991. I was going to Rollins College, and a friend of mine worked there, and they needed somebody to cover some hours because it was a family-owned business and somebody was getting married. And so that person would be Brett Bennett, who's the current proprietor of Stardust.
Where we are right now.
And so I was asked to cover some hours to work for some CDs for credit. And that slowly just transformed into more hours and more hours and more hours until finally I was offered the chance to buy the establishment from Steve and Denise Allen back in 1997. And it became mine in 1998. And since then, we were on Park Avenue until 2005. We moved over to Audubon Park and have been here ever since. And now I believe we are going to be 38 years being around as a record shop as of this October, I believe. Yeah.
That's incredible. That's so amazing. And still going strong.
Still going strong. Yep,
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Evolving with the times. Tell me about how the business has changed, obviously with streaming platforms, the way that you do business. How has that changed over the years?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start most recently. So COVID happened, obviously, and we have survived COVID and got through COVID. And I have a theory as to why a ton of record shops have survived COVID and got through it, because we're not immune to, or we are immune to the obstacles that have happened to us in the last 20 or 30 years. I think that as a small independent retailer in a record business, we had to deal with big boxes such as Best Buy and Circuit City and Kmart and Target, who worked with major labels and bands and artists to kind of, lost lead their merchandise, and that really affected our ability to do business. And then from that point, you had the advent of file sharing and Napster and those sorts of companies and online devices that, again, kind of siphoned some of the business away from the brick and mortar. And I think that all those type of things happening to us over the years has caused record shops to never be stationary and never to be never to be lazy in how you approach things. You had to constantly be reinventing yourself, figuring out how to do things, what to do, when to do it, championing new artists, new bands, being on the forefront, figuring out ways to be involved with your community locally, figuring out ways to reward your customer base, to reward your staff, to work with bands local and nationally, and to try to keep the spirit of what we do alive and going, so to speak. So I feel like all those things that happened to us in the 90s and in the aughts all prepared us to deal with being shut down completely thanks to COVID. We're already aware of how to pivot and figure out how to do business differently. And COVID just was kind of the final, all right, we can do this. We got this. We've been through adversity before. We've come through it. We survived. And in 2022, we're getting ready to have Record Store Day, the 15th anniversary of that tomorrow. And that event was created to help change the discourse and dialogue of what was happening in the aughts, with somehow the record store, the independent record shop, became somehow the villain in in what we saw in the consumer's eyes or customer's eyes or fans' eyes. And for the record shops, it felt like that's not who we are. We're not that. We're the complete opposite of that. We're here. We're fans just like you are, championing and listening and recommending artists and bands and records and anything else that we might stock, whether it be books or movies or et cetera. So So I think that event happening back in '08 and where we are now helped change the discourse and dialogue in the media, and I think it helped change the discourse and dialogue with fans, with bands, and with artists and labels. So it's always a strange trip, and I suspect it'll get stranger as time evolves. But for us, we're happy to be here, and we're happy to be part of the community, and we want to super serve everybody and have a good time with doing it. So.
And you do amazingly well at it also. I mean,
thanks, Mike.
A lot to survive. I mean, a pandemic plus just kind of the nature of it changing. How much of it has moved to vinyl and kind of, how does I hear CDs are making a comeback too, which is fascinating.
Yeah. So I think that, the CD has gotten a bad rap for different reasons. I think, the idea, what I'll say, of like gatekeepers and figuring out new forms of technology and new ways of listening to music. I think an easy attack was to go on the old school, which was what was the CD. That was the kind of primary function that people figured out how to listen to music. And when file sharing came about and technology and streaming, the CDs became this, I guess, disposable form of listening, where it almost shunned by many fans and sort of thing. And but in that time as well, vinyl was kind of kept alive, the flame kept alive by different vinyl enthusiasts from record stores, collectors, that sort of thing. And I think that vinyl itself lends itself to it's a much larger item. It's more tactile, it's more collectible, and it's a little more sexy than, say, a CD might be. And as a result, we've seen that happen where our space in our shop has gone from being, mostly CDs to now being mostly records and vinyl, still having a very substantial section of CDs, both new and used, but also expanding and doing books and tchotchkes and those sort of things. And in the last, I would say, fortunately, unfortunately, as vinyl has elevated itself and has become more accepted and found by the populace, in more demand, prices have gone up, prices and supplies have gone up, and with the current situation of COVID, supply chain is definitely affected by that. So what we've seen is that just like in the 90s when CDs came about, records were really super cheap. Somebody could walk into a record shop with 20 or 30 bucks in their pocket and walk out with a stack of records. Now, 20, 30 bucks get you one new record, but you can walk into a record shop and walk out with a stack of used CDs for really cheap. And so we're watching kids who are building their collections coming into our used CD bin and figuring out what they want to get and being like, oh, somebody traded the whole Sonic Youth catalog in, or oh, they have the whole Beatles catalog here, kind of stuff. And all of a sudden it gives these kids a chance to pick up CDs on the cheap and build their collections. Also, a lot of kids are driving cars, secondhand cars passed down by parents or picked up in used lots that have CD players in them. So there's a need to have music to play in your vehicle as you drive around. So we are definitely seeing a pickup in CDs again, which I'm happy with. I'm happy that we can sell any format in the shop, might be on vinyl, on cassette, and on CD, to anybody who wants to favor whatever format that they enjoy listening to their music on, so to speak. So yeah, CDs are making a comeback.
That's amazing. And cassettes as well,
Cassettes as well. Yeah, we sold more Walkmans last year than we probably ever have.
Wow.
And I think the idea of kids making mixtapes, a real mixtape, as opposed to just a digital mix, is something that they find entertaining and interesting and fun. And as somebody who grew up in that era, I can relate to that completely.
Totally. Same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Exactly.
It's exciting.
Uh-huh.
So the move from Park Avenue in Winter Park to Audubon Park, how did that come about?
Yeah, sure. So we were on Park Avenue for a long time since we started. And with everything going on with the industry, with technology and all the changes happening, we had a small space on Park Avenue. And of course, Park Avenue is not cheap by any means. Parking is scarce over there as well. And referencing back to my friend Brett, who was getting ready to open Stardust, we had talked and joked about that it'd be great if I can move the shop over to this neighborhood, and that we think we could really kind of, in tandem, make something happen. And we thought this was a great area that was just kind of prime to kind of renew itself, so to speak. So when my lease came up and it was, and my previous landlord was not being friendly in that negotiation, I decided that, one, I was going to look for a new space. And in looking for a new space, I know I needed a bigger location to do more of what we wanted to do, which we saw the vinyl trend coming. We saw people being into that. We needed space to do vinyl. We wanted to have space to do proper in-stores and autograph signings and events. And we felt like this neighborhood being surrounded by a fantastic residential area, kind of being really centered to Orlando. And we just felt like it was going to be the place to be. We felt like it was good. The vibe was good. We felt like there weren't many chains around here. There's, literally a 7-Eleven, and that's it. So we felt like if we can get a space there, let's see what happens. And luckily we did. And it's been a great move for us, and it's been a great experience. And we love it. We love being here.
Yeah, well, we love having you here. What you have done in stores with concerts, bands, and artists that have come through. What have been some of your favorites that you've had in store?
So yeah, we'd love to have bands in the shop, whether it be an autograph signing or combined to do a performance. It can be acoustic, it can be electric. We liked for bands, artists to do something different. That's not what you're going to see that night at their main show. So some of the highlights for me over the years have been having Vampire Weekend and their first tour, as they were completely blowing up. That was fun. Having the National in right before they blew up, and those two were fantastic. Having Childish Gambino in, where I met him at an industry function, and he and I talked afterwards, and we just talked about music and about the store, and said we'd love to have you. And then as he started to blow up, when he came through, we extended the invitation, and he said yes. And he came out, and watching the excitement of the kids with him, and how much fun that was to have him there and doing his thing for everybody. Jeff Tweedy from Wilco was another highlight. Jose Gonzalez back in 2008 was mighty and fine, and with his acoustic guitar, and just you hear a pin drop in the store, and super proud of that one. We've had a ton of artists over the years, and from Wanda Jackson to Charlie Louvin to 1975 to the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. It's the list goes on and on. So super proud of all those appearances. Yeah.
That's amazing. And how many recordings have been done of those performances?
So there's been over 100 recordings done, and officially I think there's been like 8 or 9 of them that have been released on CD or on LP or digitally. And in fact, tomorrow on Record Store Day, they're putting a book out for the 15th anniversary of Record Store Day. And on that, it contains an LP of different recordings from different bands over the course of these years that appeared at independent record shops. So we were lucky to be asked to include a track from our Jose Gonzalez appearance. So he's on there with Pearl Jam and Billie Eilish and Paul McCartney and Metallica and a bunch of others. So we're super thrilled to be part of that collaboration and be included.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So will you be having more in-store shows with, things kind of calming down with COVID a bit?
That's the hope. Yeah. We're itching to get back to that, to have, whether it be an autograph signing or a performance, and just to be having that experience. We try to create something different and unique. We include Full Sail, comes out and record stuff. We try to use local artists to do their artwork and posters, and try to create a different fun experience for the fan base and for the artist as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the other offerings that you have in your shop. You mentioned books and collectibles and toys and things like that. Do you curate that stuff yourself, or do you have somebody in the shop that kind of figures out what to buy, what the kids are into, and what's
Yeah. So when we moved over to Corinne, we decided we needed more space. We got more space, and we need to figure out what else we can do with that space. So besides records and CDs, we also wanted to have DVDs. Not just music DVDs, but movies and also books, and not just music books. A buddy of mine used to have a shop. It's like, well, you're recommending like the White Album to people, and you're recommending maybe a Kubrick film to people. Why wouldn't you recommend like a J.D. Salinger book to people? And I was like, and a light bulb went off, and I was like, yeah, why couldn't I do that? I can do that. I can bring books in. And so we started bringing books in, and somebody who reads and who likes doing that, it was fun to dive into that world to figure out what we could curate to appeal to our customer base and to the neighborhood that would make sense. So the space we have dedicated to books is smaller than it is for music, but we feel like it's really makes sense for who shops the store. And it's a trial and error. It's finding out what works, what doesn't work, focusing on books that are on Orlando-based, on Florida-based, on hiking, on day trips, on Florida wildlife, Florida, just anything based around Florida, so to speak. And then also fiction, classic fiction, local writers, then pop culture, obviously music. Could be things based around Star Wars or based around, ranking top movies sort of thing. We carry some kids' books we think are kind of fun and eclectic, and just kind of figure out some things and kind of switch them up. Might be things on cookbooks, maybe pertain to more vegan and vegetarian friendly diets. Could be just pop culture books, just things that look interesting. Right now, I do most of the curation of the buying, but the staff all have the ability to jump in and be like, we should get this or we should have that. And both with music and with movies and with books kind of things. But yeah, so we do that. We carry different toys that we think are fun and make sense for ourselves as well as for the customers. We carried Kid Robot for a long time. We've been on the Funko bandwagon since the beginning pretty much. And we find other things that make sense pop culture wise, that'd be posters or the Saint candles or just different things that kind of pop into our vision, and we just go and grab them and bring them in.
And candies and sodas now too.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah.
So wild.
Yeah.
It's like such a cool mix of like things that people can get excited about that you won't find anywhere else locally.
Yeah, that's the hope, definitely. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So tell me about your involvement with the neighborhood and the Main Street organization. You were a founding member back from 2009, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's,
so how has that kind of fit into keeping the business as successul as it's been? How has that collaboration been for you?
It's been great. When the initial idea was thrown out there, I forget who maybe brought the kind of everybody together to talk about it with the city and that this thing was happening. And I think Emily was one of the folks. She was really spearheading that and pulled me aside, and we attended the first meeting just to kind of get together and then talk to the city. And then all of a sudden this thing germinated, and I thought it made sense. I thought it made sense to involve all the partners in the area working together to kind of help elevate what was already going on. To have property owners, both residential and business, to have businesses who might be renting involved, to have the city and the government involved as well. Kind of all the stakeholders that were responsible for this neighborhood being what it is and what it could become. And so for me, it was like, yeah, I want to be part of that. I want to have a voice and have a connection to not just my neighbors, but to the residents that are here, but also to the city. And to know that we had communication going on, as somebody who had just gone through previously a couple of years ago, dealing with permitting and dealing with build out and all that sort of thing, and having no one to help me with that other than myself and the contractor, I thought it'd be great to have those resources there for that aspect of it, but also just the idea of being able to kind of work together to figure out how do we do events together, how do we communicate, how do we tackle issues that we might have, the businesses might have, or the residents might have, or that we all might have, and how do we kind of keep pushing ourselves forward and having to have a vision and a goal that allows everybody to kind of see what's coming down the road.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's rare to have that, kind of third party entity that's, it's not exactly city government, but they're connected to the city. I mean, it's like mafia, but good, I guess.
Yeah, and it's not a chamber of commerce where it's just business driven.
Yeah.
It's not a HOA, which is just resident driven kind of stuff. It's like this combination where everybody is kind of mixing and coming and going, and I think that is what we actually are. That's happening every day. People are coming and going, and it's all these entities that make this neighborhood what it is.
Yeah, and a theme that kind of comes up in discussions about this district is just like the fact that we are like geographically a connector, right? It's like we're sort of the pass through, like people leaving Baldwin Park kind of come through our district, people leaving Winter Park if they're going to Orlando. This is like one route to get there. And also like the people in this neighborhood are connectors as well. It's like, it's all through kind of combined efforts and like sharing resources and sharing information and just being there for each other. It's a rare thing to see. I think all of the business owners are helping one another. Like nobody's really in competition. Nobody's like trying to like, outdo anybody. There's no Starbucks moving in to shut down the coffee shops. Like, we're still thriving as an independent business community, and it's just so rare. It's like,
it creates, I think it defines what I think any city or any town, I think that when you go traveling, you want to see things that define that community for what it is, and unique things, unique flavors and perspectives. And I think Audubon Park is lucky enough to be that for Orlando. I think that, and granted, we're not a big neighborhood, but we're definitely a neighborhood that you come here and it's distinctly Orlando. It's unique to us. And again, I moved here in 2005 in the neighborhood, and the only chain was 7-Eleven. And in 2022, the only chain is 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
There's a Shell franchise, but everything else pretty much is a locally owned business or a Florida owned business. And that's saying a lot. And it's because we're small and funky and unique, I think it's awkward for those big guys to kind of move into here.
Yeah.
And that's okay too that they're not here.
Right.
Because again, we're showing that we can. We don't need those kind of big anchors. We can be our own thing.
And we've had a couple close calls with, I think, a Dunkin' Donuts wanted to move in here once, and that would have changed things.
Would have changed things, definitely, yeah.
And we're keeping it going, and it's you're a big part of that, and thank you for doing that.
As you are.
Thank you. Well, Sandy, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but is there anything else that you want to talk about or plug or anything?
No, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, totally. What website do people go to find you?
Yeah, parkavcds.com, PARKAVE, You can find us there. You can find us on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, on Facebook, and probably something else that my staff will yell at me about later. So,
and your Instagram handle is parkavcds?
Yeah, exactly. Across the board.
See, very easy.
Very easy.
Well, Sandy, thank you again.
Thanks, Mike.
All right.
Enjoy.
Yep. Bye. Hello APGD, a neighborhood podcast, is brought to you in part by Stardust Video and Coffee, Audubon Park's beloved neighborhood cafe, bakery, bar, and meeting place, located at 1842 East Winter Park Road. We are also sponsored by Red Light Beer Parlor and Brewery. Founded in 2005, Red Light is widely known as the source for world-class imports and microbrews, a wide selection of natural wines, plus award-winning beers brewed in-house. A full kitchen is in the works with an amazing menu by Chef Jess Tantalo, so stay tuned for that. Located at 2810 Corinne Drive, please check out Red Light for all things beer and wine, and soon food. Our theme song is by Christopher Pierce, and special thanks goes to Trey Hester for mixing the episode and for all of his help in making this podcast a reality. We do hope you enjoyed this episode. If so, please click subscribe and leave a review if you'd like. We'll see you next time.